Looks like we're live on Facebook. 1, 2, 3. Waiting on YouTube. There you go. YouTube's on. All right. Let's go here. We're going to bring up Sophie Gregoire here in just a few minutes. All right. I'm going to play an intro and allow people time to come in, and so we can share out a little bit.
Sister, do you think you know who you are? Do you think you know what you can do? I'm telling you, you don't know a thing about yourself as long as you think you're limited. Why am I telling you? Why am I so fierce at this moment? I'm telling you, I did think I knew who I am. All the time I would be mild and gentle and peaceful and humble being, and it's perfect to be like this. You know what I mean? It is perfect to be all this. And I tell you, I still am. But there's the other part of me, of you, of anybody, of us. Whatever you are practicing all the time, all the years of your life, what you think you're good at, what you should improve, and what you should be perfect in, because you're born with it. I'm telling you, there's much more in each of you. In my case, this you feel, you hear now, this fierce energy, this fire, and this pressure. Well, it's so much pressure because I've held it back all my life. What the hell did I do? I'm exploding, my goodness. You see, maybe it's not your part to learn this one, but I'm telling you, don't rely on that what you think you are. Don't rely on that what people are mirroring you and telling you what you shall do or be. Just find out, just do it. Go on, try yourself, make mistakes, fall and fall and fall again, and get up again. You cannot fail, you cannot do anything wrong. Just do it. Get back your natural energy. Get back your natural being, your whole natural being. No matter if you're young or old, if you're a man or a woman, no matter which country you've been raised, no matter whatever people told you are, no matter whatever ever you thought you will be, just be serious with yourself. Just be honest with yourself. Feel all the little things that want to come up in you and want to be expressed and lived and felt. Just go, live it, be it.
How's it going, everybody? We got Sophie Gregoire in the house. I hadn't talked to her in quite a while. She's always out there doing the good work. So let's get her up here. We got 34 people on this page, 5 in Soulspeaks One Studios page. We got 4 in Soulspeaks Group, and nobody quite here yet in YouTube. But we're happy to have everybody here. Happy to have Sophie back. Thank you for all your love and support and contributions. It allows us to keep doing this every day. And if these shows resonate, please share. We would appreciate it. Can you hear me?
Up. Yeah.
Ah, buenos dias.
Hi, Todd. Hi,
Bon dia.
everybody.
How are you doing?
Lovely to be here again.
Yeah, definitely. It's good to see you.
Yeah, what a beautiful song and introduction.
Wasn't it? You know, she did that. I met her when I was making music in the old studio, and I was in this group of like 50 people. It was a real interesting group. They wrote a lot of good stuff. Anyway, I put out some of the Soul Speak music into the group, you know, when I would share it out. And she said, I want to do one. So I said, well, just get your phone and just speak the words. So she sent them to me. I found the music and I made the video. But then I found out later that she didn't write the words. She actually did that freestyle from her heart, you know?
Wow.
Yeah, it's very powerful.
Very powerful, very uplifting, and
Yeah.
also golden images as well. I felt like, a little hypnotized, like,
Yeah. She picked the images and yeah, it was very cool. Very
Very.
spontaneous. That's the energy, right? The
Yeah.
spontaneity and the intuitiveness and, you know, going with the alignment of the soul, the human aligning with all its aspects, you know.
Creativity has to be spontaneous, I believe,
It does.
Like
That's why
if
I
we
love.
are searching for a destination or I want to get there, I want this to look that way, and it just stops the natural
Yeah.
flow from here. And it's
That's a
starting
very
to
that's a
feel
very
like
good
from the mind and organized.
yeah. That's a very good point. And I, like probably most people, fall into that still, you know, where you want to do something, but it's getting easier just to let it, you know, just to relax and let it happen because it's happening.
Yeah,
It's no,
exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. Like the actually the creative energy is present in everybody, right? And it's
yeah,
just like energy wanted to move, wanted to create something out of just a field that's just
yeah,
like something, and then it wants to create from there. It's an emotional release, an energetic release, and it's funny because I just wrote something this morning about it, like writing, because this is where my creativity goes at, is a process of energetic or emotional release. It's not like
yeah,
oh, I should write this because of that, because if I write this and I'll get there. That's very complex. But the energy is there and it just wants to flow out, right?
yeah. I can totally relate to that. I remember, well, you know, even maybe up to 2 or 3 days ago, from when I woke up 9 years ago, and I would find myself in these situations, which were all the same thing. I love what you
Mm.
said, because I'd say, well, what the hell do I do? And I would just hear, create your way out. So I started to understand that creativity isn't just artistic expressions. You know, it's actually our natural nature to be creating in every moment and working. And what I like what you said, because you work with what's there. Don't go out and find something in dimension, or not that we don't, but I'm just saying, or that someone else has, or money or resources. Work with what you have. I like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, exactly. We have it already available within us. And
Mm,
it's more matter very often of silencing the mind, because the mind wants to know where it's going,
yeah,
why are you creating this, or why are you doing this with your life? I mean, you should be doing something else. Like it's always like a futuristic
yeah,
type of thinking. And creativity is just in the now. So
yeah,
I believe it's almost like not a different timeline, but like a different moment, a different time.
yeah. It's a different consciousness. You
Yeah,
got to be conscious to have consciousness, or well, to be in control, not in control, but to be to get the most out of the fact that we manifest, whether we're conscious or not. I mean, it's always happening. Yeah.
yeah.
But you know, it's interesting too, because what you're saying is, I've heard a lot of that on these shows the last few months, particularly from people like yourself, people that have been doing this a long time. They've been practitioners,
Mhm.
and just other intel or things that people write, and then really bringing it back to, you know, I used to talk to all these different faces of the universe, and now I just speak to one voice, or um, their
Mhm.
healing practices have modified or changed, becoming more self-empowering for the client. Um, that type of energy is, I think, it's here, it's coming. And yeah, you're right. It's like we're being forced to be present. By we
Yeah.
either flow into it or we get forced into it, because either way it's happening. The shift's going down.
Yeah, oh my God, very much so. And it's also the difference between the ego and the soul, right? Like the ego wants to know, and the soul is just there and it's saying something,
Yeah,
and it's just happening,
yeah,
like a vessel. And we think, like as humans, I'm doing this, it's me and it's him, and it's very me, and very personal.
hmm,
But we are more like divine vessels and transmitters and messengers for something.
yeah,
So when the ego gets a little on the side and sort of forgets about their own magnificence or whatever, then something comes through him and her, but it's more about a collective spirit and a
yeah,
collective consciousness.
yeah. Like a
I feel.
connectivity. Yeah, like you
Yes.
can see the connectivity
Mm.
because when you're in that state, we attract what we are, whether we're conscious or not. you know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Very true.
yeah, that's and I think the other thing is what you said too just a second ago, that there's something going on. Like this is where it's at. It's not about
Mm.
these narratives and these stories and the
Mm.
fear and the saviors, and it's about what you just said. it's
Mm.
it's about well, we're either flowing or being forced into being present. And
Yes.
what else
True.
is there? I mean, what else is there that aligns the human aspect with all our other multidimensional aspects?
Yeah. Yeah. Like the resistance sometimes we feel, it's like I felt it. I remember like a few years ago when I first started to, at that time I was writing poetry, and very often it was like it didn't really make sense, or it was like about love and sort of very intense and sort of passionate or fiery. And a part of me was wondering what the like why were we doing this? It had different parts within myself and being like, so why are you writing poetry on Facebook? Like you know, and it's all this resistance is like an energetic block. And then one day you say, it doesn't matter, I don't exactly know why I'm doing what I'm doing, but I feel compelled
Yeah,
over and over to let this flow move, so I'm just going to let it move. And it also, like, that when something comes to us repeatedly, like even painting or other forms of art, when it, like, the intuition comes and the flow is there present often, then it's like those quotations, like the universe will move you as, like, many times until you really get it, like until you really let yourself be moved by the flow.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that happened to me with the ratings and with other things in life. Like I said, no, no, I don't know, I'm resisting it, and you pushed and pushed and pushed, and then you're like, okay, let's do it.
yeah, yeah. And it feels good too. And it's almost like we don't want to do it because we're scared of something. Scared what people are going to think.
Yeah.
Scared what we're going to think. you know. But I saw this video a couple of years ago, and I can't remember if they were lions or bears. I
Mm.
think they were lions, and so they had been held in captivity for their whole lives since they were born. And there was about 6 or 7 of them, and they took them out to, I guess, to the jungle and to this opening, this field, and they let them out. And you should have seen the way they came out. They came out real tender, like taking a step and then took another step, like no one's going to stop me. And then once they got away from the cage, they went out into the field and just started like rolling around and playing and rolling on their back and just enjoy, like,
Yeah.
uninhibited, unimpeded, free
Yeah.
flowing, pure joy. And
Yeah.
I think the reason I bring that up is because I think a lot of what we're feeling is we're like those animals coming out of the cage and going, wait a
Yeah.
minute, I don't see any horizons or fences or borders. Wow, like someone's going to stop this. It's never gone on before and been allowed to continue. But I think well, obviously something's happening and none of us can stop it. So we might as well jump in.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting, this animal like thing you were sharing. I believe that the soul is joyful and the soul is free, that the vibration of the soul and the higher self and all that. And then as humans, we just like attach or give meaning to some limitations we received or we learned or we
Yeah.
were, we received just from other people. And so the soul loses its freedom and its joy, and it's like, oh no, not this and maybe that. And but naturally, like if we let go of all those limitations, like just like a burden, okay, let this go, it doesn't matter anymore, it's just a thought, like, then
Yeah.
we move from this energetic space, and it's exactly like that, like a cage, and like yeah, an
Yeah.
opening, like a remembering into back into the soul or something like that.
Yeah. I remember when I was in school, like at 8, 9, 10 years old. And, you'd always go out, you'd do your classes and your lessons and everything. Then you would go out to, we call it recess in America. You go out to the playground.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when we go out to the playground, they'd have, they'd have things for us to do, like, just different exercises or whatever. But every now and then they would say, it's free play. And free play was just being able to go do whatever you wanted to do. you
Yeah,
know? And
I
it,
know. And when that happens, some of us, like actually many of us or everybody, and then it changes in time, we're like, really? So it's free time.
yeah,
What can I do, right?
yeah,
If we've been like in the, I don't really like this word, but I think you understand what I mean, like in the matrix or in boxes for such a long time,
yeah, yeah.
then one day they tell you, now you're free, and you're like, so, but what is freedom again?
Yeah,
What am I gonna do if I actually can do what I want to do?
yeah. Morgan has this great saying, if you look for it, you're going to find it, no matter what it
Yeah,
is. If you look for, whatever, uh, you know, save your programming, if you look for whatever narrative you want to, you'll find it. If you think there's bad guys in the world, if you look for the information, you're going to find it.
yeah,
You're going to.
yeah,
So I think about what you're saying, and I think about those animals coming out of the cage.
yeah,
So like when they're taking just baby steps and looking around, they're actually looking around for more, you know, for more matrix, for another boundary or border or
yeah,
fence. And we're the
yeah,
ones that we're the
another,
one we look for it, it appears. So, let's just get out of our way and we've tried everything else. Let's go with the I am soul. Let's go with what you're talking about, the creativity in the moment. And you know, that thing that you're describing and that we're talking about, there are no words for it.
yeah, it's a feeling. But I noticed something too. Once we've tapped into this feeling, even one day, like one time, then something has forever changed, right? It's like an
Yeah,
energetic
yeah,
frequency or like a vibration, or it's not like higher or lower than any other, right? But it's a
right.
way of life almost. I let myself be moved, and so the energy in myself becomes a creation or becomes a decision. It doesn't have to be like an artistic creation, it becomes a decision to go somewhere else or to stay somewhere or whatever. Like it becomes a flow. And once we've done it at least one day, I found that it's easy to come back to this type of frequency.
Yeah,
So I believe, like I say this sometimes, and maybe that's a big thing, but I believe life can change in one day. Maybe not really like all our circumstances, like that can happen too. But what I mean is the energy that we decide to tap into, and then once we found it, even if we have like ups and downs and we go back and
yeah,
we come, and it implements and so on, it's sort of the being has found it. Like when once the being has found freedom, or for example a sense of sovereignty or a sense of living from their passion or
yeah,
whatever, once it's found, it's never really lost again, right? Like I had a
yeah,
mentor like a long time ago. She would say life only goes forward, which is
yeah,
funny. It's a little linked to what you said before. We only go forward, meaning you don't go back to old energies. And it's
mhm,
like what's happening in the world right now. like some people, I don't really want to talk about this, but some people say we'll go back to whatever, but life doesn't go back exactly to
Mm-mm.
to the past. It's not going in this direction.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I mean, I'm not knocking any politics or anything, but when I hear "Make America Great Again," first of all, was it ever great?
Yeah,
Second, and I'm
exactly.
not picking on America. I'm picking on anything that distracts us. Uh, and then the other thing is to try things creatively that we've never
Yeah,
tried before. Why would what's the old saying? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, thinking the different result's going to occur.
yeah.
Um, and then the thing about what you're saying with how, and we can. I'm convinced we can. We change every timeline, every dimension, every multi-dimensional aspects, incarnation in the moment, and the human for some reason is in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
And I remember, because like with Morgan, when I met her in 2015, I knew something was going on that was beyond this world, right? And I'd have
Yeah.
visions and stuff like that. And one day I told her, this is like a few months ago, I said to her, why don't we let's get ourselves aligned, or whatever however I put it, and get back to that place I saw where we were at. We were on this big planet. It was purple and green. We had a big castle. All these animals were around,
Wow.
dragons and unicorns. And she said, why don't we just not think about that and create our own fairy tale? And I
Mm.
thought, wow, that's true, because like what you said, all that stuff, all those memories that we've had, people talk about the galactic as our future selves, and who knows how all that works. But the fact is, we've got memory of it. It's already occurred. The only thing we don't have memory of is what's not happening. It's happening right now.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a dream state to me. Like when you're in dream
Yeah.
state, and how you can go from one place to another, and it's just a whole different type of frequency, more of a quantum frequency. I think
Hmm.
that's what we're actually anchoring.
Yeah. The For me, I agree with you, and I was about to say before you were sharing about the fairy tales and so on, that creativity, I think, is the most powerful tool in the world. Like I don't want to go into politics either, but the ways that the people are maintained into whichever way of life and the
Hmm.
works, and way of relating, like anything that you want, way of making money, of being not feeling free, being attached to supermarket or whatever. It's because we're not creative.
Yeah.
Once someone has found their creativity, they cannot be controlled anymore,
Yeah.
because they've found their own way of moving energy, of being alive, of feeling good, of feeling free. So I believe, for me, it's the most powerful tool that us as individuals and humans can use to reclaim our power and
Yeah.
become sovereign.
Yeah.
Example, what if everybody was able to grow, like, I don't know, tomatoes and whichever you want to grow, and everybody was able to make their own living away from corporations,
Yeah.
or in their own free way, like the way that really resonates, even if it's with corporation, maybe Monday, Tuesday, but not the rest of the week or whatever. When someone has found their creative expression, even if it's not artistic, creativity is anything. It's deciding to wake up at 11 and not at 8, like it's a creative expression of the soul. And once we've found that, we cannot be controlled anymore. Like the
Yeah.
individual has found their true authentic power and
Yeah.
sovereignty. So it's very hard for any big, like, thing happening on a big scale to maintain us.
Yeah. That's right. No matter what
Yeah.
it is. And because you got to think about it, we latch on to these things in our experience, before we really started to wake up. And now we're applying it to our lives. But so through our whole life, whether it be the company we worked for, or the religion we served, or relationships, or roles as father or son or whatever,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
would latch on to certain belief systems. And in one regard, you would think that we trust that belief system. We trust the United States of America. We trust, Mexico. We trust this religion or that religion, or this relationship or that person. And the fact that we hold on to it and attach to it so much shows me that we're actually in fear. And
Yeah.
so, because the whole thing is, to me, trust and love are the same thing. And I don't mean that like by human definitions, but that's as close as I can get. If I don't trust myself, then obviously I'm going to give in fear, I'm going to give away to something that I trust more, even though I don't
Yeah.
trust it completely.
Yeah.
you know, so
You give away your power. Like when we do that, we don't really trust in our capacity or our free will or sovereignty. So we attach to an external thing to give us trust, but then our power is taken away, the energy, the time, and the attention. And so we start to function with many different things in order to function ourselves, right?
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah,
so like,
that's interesting. When I left the corporate world, so it was in 2014,
mm,
and then I went to volunteer in Asia. And so when I left it, I thought, okay, so what am I going to do without this? It's like, I don't know the word in English, but in French you say béquille. It's something you hold on to so that you feel that you can, stay on your feet and have money and all that. So you're
mhm,
like, if I lose it, maybe everything is gone, and maybe there isn't any other word, which was obviously not true, but this is what I was thinking at the time. And so when I did it, I just remembered you work with them to actually feel confident and feel good in your skin and feel in
mhm,
your power, but at the same time you give them your days and you give them your brain, like your thinking, because they
mhm.
hire you to produce thinking. So
Yeah,
instead of thinking for yourself, you give your brain and your abilities to an external power, and they
yeah,
give you money. So you give energy and intelligence and everything like that so that they give you money. And it's
yeah.
very much so like an energetic transaction that's actually very bizarre.
Like it's a
So
vampiric energy.
yeah,
But we're the
I
ones
know.
that, but it's like we walk up to the vampire and say, here's my neck. Go ahead and bite me. But it is a very subtle consent, and
Yes.
in universal law, we have to give consent. But we've woken up now. I look at, you know, homeless people.
Hmm.
I spent a couple years on the streets, and it was very educational, um, and uplifting, and a lot of epiphanies. And I think about what's happening, and I think about whose lives have been, you know, changed. Um, Routines have been changed. Those very things that you're talking about taken out of the equation. And then I look at homeless people. Their life hasn't changed. They're uninterrupted, pretty much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're doing the same thing they were doing. There's a lot to be said for that, because they don't have those routines and those patterns that are built into what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
the thing is, the more we are programmed, or the more that we give our power away, like in the ways like you said, the less creative we are. you
Yeah.
know Creativity
Sure.
doesn't have a discipline. It doesn't have it. It just has a passion. It just has a in the moment spark that in itself is finite, but in reality just runs forever.
Yeah. Exactly. It has a flow that's open one day and maybe not open the following, but it's not organized with times and things like
No,
that. So when
right.
I initially started to write some energetic things, it was happening during the night. So again, example, because I like, the moon energy and the feminine energy, and
Yeah,
I happen to be more creative and sort of productive in this area during the night, which
yeah,
is like something, you know.
yeah,
But when it started that way, I would be, no, it's time to sleep now. They told you you need to sleep early and etc. And why not? But then if your creativity happens during the night, or if whatever, then that's the way it is. That's your soul, or maybe your birth chart has a lot to do with, stuff like that that can also be seen there. But I mean, everybody has a very individual way of functioning and a very individual imprint. And when the individual starts to tap into that, they cannot be controlled anymore. They know, I function this way, that way. I need this to feel good, and that's extremely powerful.
mm, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Have you had how was the equinox for you? Well,
So,
did you have anything extraordinary happen on the equinox, or yeah, around the equinox time?
mm, so that's a good question. Not really this time. So I felt I really love Aries season and Aries energy.
Hmm.
So since we are in Aries and since was the equinox, I felt way more energized than the days and weeks before. I normally feel that when the equinox happens is the start of the year for me, way
Okay.
more than January. I feel okay, something new, like a new level, it's new, whatever. So nothing specific happened, but there was this creative spark, maybe more present, and this fire type of energy of following your own roadmap and doing what you really like to do. I would say this inner passion spark maybe came back for me during the equinox, at the equinox, like a week ago. Uh, yeah, I noticed for my own experience and the way that
Yeah.
I work. I'm always more or less creative in different ways, but it tends to really have lows and ups, and depending the time of the year, I have a lot of ideas and I really believe in that. And then I'm more like inward and contemplative and sort of reassessing what happened, or maybe learning something, for example, in relationships. Or I had a lot of sort of soul work happening recently with my partner, which
Mm.
also took a lot of time. So it's more a time of, oh, this is happening, like almost like witnessing.
Yeah.
And then I know there is a creative flow from there, right? We alternate between those two things. But so the equinox was that for me, like a renewed
Yeah.
passion maybe for,
Yeah. I didn't know you had a partner. That changes the dynamics too,
yeah,
because it fast tracks things.
yes.
It's like it's moves really fast, but you have more clarity,
Yeah. And it
and it.
always brings you back to, like, I used to think, because I had like relationships before, especially a long one, like I got married and divorced and so on. So I used to remember this energy of like maybe you lose energy because there is so much process to do that you less do what you want to do for yourself. But then my understanding of this completely changed. Like if you're with someone that wants to grow with you, then any interaction, like mirroring interaction, is so catalytic that it's never, I left away this sort of paradox. Oh, if you're with someone, you're going to lose time because you're going to blah blah blah. But it's not true. It's very catalytic type of
Yeah.
mix of of like light energies and wounding wooden parts and blah
It's
blah
like
blah.
that spark you were talking about.
Yeah.
It's the same type of energy. It's very cool, especially in these energies that are, getting bigger and bigger, that are coming to the earth.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Very alchemical. This is the word I was looking for. And this represented a big change for me, because so I had this long relationship like a long time ago, and then I had like other short relationships, and I also had like the twin flame one, which actually wasn't really like, maybe in the beginning, but wasn't really in the long run a relationship, like where you,
Hmm.
you see each other, but more like an energetic massive healing or shadow
Hmm.
work triggered by someone and their energy, right? But so I had this very catalytic and enlightening thing that happens through a lot of, like pain or abandonment or drama or distance or silence or whatever. And so I wasn't used to real work happening in a very healthy and supportive container. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah.
So that's
Do you,
that's a good thing.
and that's interesting though, because I was going to ask you about, because I know you're very connected to the divine feminine energy. Some of the stuff that you write,
Yeah.
and just knowing you from before. So if you look at, you take the people or the partners out of it, and you go back to, like, say, that time when you weren't being supported, or there was a less balance. Now it's gotten more and more balance for a lot of people and collectively. Did you feel anything like recently in regard to, like, in regard to the divine feminine? Like, did you experience any kind of elevation or
Yeah.
I want to say like new energy or
Yeah.
fulfillment? Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I witnessed it like in many areas. I would say it's um we are maybe like the divine feminine as a whole is taking things less personally and we are learning as a collective, right? Not myself or anybody, but really
Yeah.
as a collective to hold space in life and in relationships and in families and whatever. Like the mother, even in the tarot, like the mother is nurturing, compassionate, but what
Mm,
she does is just lovingly and passionately holding space rather than um, reacting or finding faults. She's like, I believe for me the divine feminine is like a all encompassing presence more
yeah.
than something that pushes you to whatever.
Yeah.
And this is
Yeah.
what I've sort of witnessed.
Yeah. That's interesting. And it's in what you're describing. If you could give advice to any man or woman on the face of the earth, it seems like as the masculine softens and as the feminine comes into her true power, her true nature that you just described, that's what everybody's coming to, you know,
Yeah.
being able to be present, being able to hold space, being
Yeah.
able to stand in that space without judgment, which really, when you get right down to it, the only thing I know of that could be that is the womb, is the mother herself,
Mm.
that
Yeah.
perfection that was there
Yeah.
before we started this infinite expansion. but
Yeah. True.
but even like if I look at myself or look at men, I can say in the last 2 3 years, whatever, it's been an evolution, but I've learned what holding space is, and my thought process have changed. And yes, I think like a lot of people, probably most people, the judgment's starting to fade away. The attachments are fading away, resistance is fading away. But
Yeah.
that's really, to me, that's the characteristics of that divine mother frequency.
Yeah.
That's
Uh,
that's
mm,
been that's been pushed down, and even for the women, not allowed to come out.
yeah. Uh, I'm noticing the very, like I would say, the magic of a word. It is to accept, like acceptance.
Yeah,
I feel more and more that the frequency of love, like we say so many things about it, like what it is to behave healthily, what's not, like there are a lot of conversations, but the energy of presence, acceptance, and just holding someone or holding space is extremely powerful.
yeah,
So much can be healed, or so much is allowed to come to surface when you're just held and you feel, okay, I'm not judged, I'm
yeah,
accepted. So if I'm
yeah,
accepted, I don't have to like contort or find a wounded way of saying something actually very deep or very sad or whatever. So
yeah,
acceptance is, I feel, is rising more and more in, again, in partnerships, but also in friendships, in communities.
yeah,
uh, when the energetics of someone are less sort of, oh, this is happening, so what does it mean about me? Oh no, I'm just accepting a
yeah,
situation, or I'm
yeah.
accepting a person.
I like what you
uh,
said earlier about that she's not taking things personal. And again, we're talking energy. In my belief, the energy that's been suppressed in all of us, regardless of what our physical gender is. Uh, I love this comment by Kylie Jude. Thank you. She said the divine feminine is collectively working on relaxing and receiving more, getting back
yeah.
to the feminine qualities so many have tried to push down for so long. I read that and I was listening to you while I was reading it because we're multidimensional.
Yeah.
and I was picturing, and I don't know if I was the person hugging the other person or if I was the one being hugged, but I was kind of picturing the energy of when we allow ourselves, when we truly receive, you know, metaphorically speaking, a hug. Like it's one thing to hug someone, but it's another thing to surrender and let go, trust, love, and just allow yourself to be hugged. And I'm speaking metaphorically, as well as
Yeah.
literally with a hug. But to me, that's again that divine mother frequency,
Yeah.
because she doesn't just give,
Yeah.
she receives.
And receiving is an art as well. Like receiving and is trust in someone, in the self, in the universe. It's real feminine perspective of, okay, I trust whatever, this is, I trust the forces around me.
Yeah,
So it's real surrendering within into the inner feminine, rather than like giving, doing, all that
yeah,
are extremely beautiful, and are also trying to control or to actually lead.
yeah,
The feminine presence, yes, is relaxing more and more into trusting, I believe.
yeah. That's a big deal. You know, one
That's a
time,
big deal.
one time in Morgan's at the University of Morgan Lee, in the many courses I've taken, this was about a year and a half ago. So I was laying on the bed and we were talking, and we were working. We were pretty much always working. Anyway, she had me lay on my back and she took my knees and spread my legs like forcefully, and held them and said, "Now, do you understand what it's like for a woman to spread her legs?" Now, again, I'm speaking metaphorically, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But in that moment, I realized what that meant. And so if it's the mother goddess frequency and she's metaphorically spreading her, she is putting herself in the most vulnerable position possible. How much more trust could you ask for and or give?
Yeah.
I mean, that said it all to me. And I was like, at that point, I hit a different level because I don't think a lot of men. I felt I was very sensitive to women's needs and to so growing up to that point, let's just say. But I didn't really understand what they'd been through,
Yeah.
and so I think that's the energy that I'm looking at right now. I'm looking at the transformation, if you want to call it that, of the suppressed feminine energy, individually and collectively, into its natural state. And
Yeah.
that's just blowing my mind because I can see how it's happening in myself.
Yeah. I like this metaphor. It's very powerful. I'm witnessing in my relationships of all kind, and especially with the partnership and with men in general,
Hmm.
the feminine, I believe, is also learning to trust more.
Hmm. Yeah.
We like the feminine frequency also has a capacity of sometimes like finding faults. I feel this
Yeah.
happened, this was said, this was done, uh, and it's hard to explain for me, but
No, I
it's,
get what you're saying.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
it
because
it
a lot of times well, and it's understandable that if you're a man, you see it one way. If you're a woman, you see it another way, and that certain things apply to one or the other. But the
yeah,
truth is, the patriarchal programming, the false masculine, the power over,
yeah,
affected everybody. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
It's one thing for the divine mother, metaphorically speaking, to spread her legs
yeah,
in a subservient manner or a forced manner. It's another thing for her, for that energy having been gone through what it's gone through, to do the same thing with higher and higher degrees, levels of trust. And this
mm,
is really what I think we're all getting to, because fear-based programming is fear-based programming. It doesn't matter what you want to call it, what it looks like, whether you're conscious of it or not, or want to be defensive about it or not. Uh, it's still fear-based programming, and it has one result, and that one of well, that result could be described as a lack of trust. I mean, creating an atmosphere of no trust, so therefore you have to be guided, controlled, taken care of.
Yes.
directed and ordered around. You know, do
I
this.
know.
Yeah.
I know. The shift happening between divine feminine and divine masculine comes down a lot to respecting and really accepting each other power.
Yeah.
Example, like I see it's a metaphor, right? It's not about
Yeah.
myself, but energetically, the feminine, or I could say high sees power, and I won't try to limit it to gain something out of the
Yeah.
masculine presence that's within my life. And then the man also respects the feminine power,
Yeah.
and I'm not trying to, take her out of the flow, or I don't know, it comes to very different level of expressions for everybody.
No, I
But
get what that's
you know
yeah, that's
the inner
very,
power of
yeah.
each, if it's respected,
Yeah.
then it's really a union where both can thrive, and nobody is judging or diminishing the life force and the life expression of any of both.
Yeah, it's true equality. I wasn't
Yeah,
trying to
yeah,
interrupt you. There's a lag. But I love what you said. Because she went first. She's going first. She steps into her power. And he's letting go of this false power. So
yeah,
like I've talked about,
exactly.
yeah, I've talked about this on the shows a lot. And I said, well, I got to the point where I didn't have anything left. I had nothing left. No manhood, no sexuality, no nothing, no power. It was all gone. But I really like what you're saying, because I've watched it happening. I was going to say I watched it happen, but I'm watching it as it happened, in my life, and maybe in the collective as well. And that is that full, she's going into full power, and he's
Yeah,
and he's behind her,
it's a
because
balance.
he wasn't in his power, he was in a false power. So now
Yeah,
he's coming up, and I've watched it in awe. I've
yeah,
watched the feminine even in my own life. And then I could also see, as a masculine, oh my God, the power is coming back. I am powerful. And then that starts to happen. And actually, it's a beautiful dance. You described it very well.
yeah. I believe it's really a matter of balance, but I agree with you. She needs to step in her power sort of first.
Yes.
He's not challenged to let go
Yeah.
of part of his maybe dominative traits or controlling traits. So she has to be like this, to
Yeah.
really sort of catalyze the
Yeah.
process.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? It's you can't just say, oh, so and so stepped into their power. It's still, up, and then you drop a little bit and up, like you were talking about earlier, you know. And
Yeah.
when you understand that, I think that's where that respect comes from, because it works both ways. And
Yes.
and you don't put them on a pedestal, but I can certainly see where the feminine energy is probably smart to to come out, to really hold the line and be too strong than too soft, because
Exactly.
a lot of what I've seen now, we've tried to talk to a lot of couples, and in the work I'm doing, I've talked to a lot of couples. But Morgan said this for a long time. She was getting this intel before I met her, and the intel was, she's going to step into her power. She has to step into her power first, just what we just said. But I've noticed it in couples,
Yeah.
and what I've noticed is, and Morgan's always said this, that until she steps in her power, there can be no possibility of balance. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
because
It's
there is
still gonna,
no
yeah,
force for any process. There needs to be, it's almost like physics or something. So there
mhm,
needs to be a force
yeah,
uh, triggering the process, and the force is her rising.
yes,
And so that's why it's so alchemical, this type of partnership, because as you said before, it always goes up and down, and
hmm,
it reassesses and it rebalances, and it's seeking, like deep down, I believe it's seeking equality and sovereignty for both in a sort of independent way, but not the independent ways that just, I'm independent, but more the your cup, my cup, and then the
Yeah.
cup of the unit.
Yeah.
And
That's
both
what's,
sovereignty being witnessed, and then there is a unit.
yeah, that's what's getting interesting to me,
Yeah.
because I think the individual experience for, obviously contributes to the collective. Like we're watching the results, we're watching them in our own lives, and then, but the the energy created by the two forces, right? The masculine,
Yeah.
the feminine. There's a third energy that's created,
Yeah.
and if it's happening with couples, like Morgan and I, the third energy began speaking to us a couple of years ago. But if it's happening to couples, and I've talked to a lot of them, and it's happening, they have a joint mission, or there's just a third energy created. It's going to be happening on the collective too.
Yeah.
So not only are we going to see the continuance of the feminine rising, like there's been quite a few, several. I think who is it that has? I think Iceland or somebody has a prime minister that's a female, and the top 4 in the government are female as well. Brazil, New Zealand.
Yeah.
But I think we're also going to start to see that new masculine.
Yeah.
And I think that new masculine is
Yeah.
so, for one thing, will carry a much higher truth frequency, and people
Yeah.
will see that. And it's such a contrast to that alpha male, I'm going to kick your ass,
I know.
authoritative, wounded masculine, false masculine.
Yeah. And what's interesting is the new, in some ways, the new feminine cannot exist without the new masculine, and vice versa.
Yes.
It's like either both evolve or nobody evolves, right?
That's right.
You cannot have like a new feminine and then this, for example, as an example, an alpha male being that way. It doesn't work, or it doesn't even meet energetically. So it's all evolving really as a sacred union process.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
those men that you're talking about, for me, are very much heart-centered. Like, being there and being in presence of all that's happening with a protective and I would say well-intentioned desire, but very much so it's also selfless.
Yeah.
They are powerful, but not to serve the ego. They are powerful to serve, I don't know, to serve whatever is there.
Her.
Yeah.
And not in
Also,
the human way, but it's like she was a
I get it.
force, like you said, she's a force. If God has a gender, God's a woman, period. But she's a force, and then she produces this force from the purest state, from her core. And then the two forces start to love each other, start that dance. And that's what somebody said. I think that's what you're going to see. That's going to be like another threshold crossed, is when we start to see that masculine. But I think she's still going to, we're going to still see more of her impact for a while, because it's been a long time coming.
Yeah, and it's been a lot of, I believe, lifetimes and centuries and stuff like that, where the feminine has repressed
Oh yeah.
Anger.
Yeah.
And life fire, life free expression. So it's a lot of like sort of trapped energy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. Again, I'm not political at all. I don't have an opinion one way or the other, but I watch people. And, one thing that's really interesting, Morgan brought up Melania Trump the other day.
Yeah.
And I started to think about, I've noticed something since they've been in the presidency. I've noticed something about them, mostly in pictures and I guess videos. But it's not even the words, it's the body language. Like, he's the president of the United States. He's 6'3". He's a pretty big guy.
Yeah.
And she's this energy of, to me, that energy that we're talking about, that this world is starting to see more of in all of us. But she's like this energy of, hey, I am my own person.
Yeah.
Don't forget that. I'm
Yeah.
quiet. I'm in the background. She has tremendous influence on him. I mean, this woman wouldn't let her kid go to the White House when he got elected. She chose her, her heart, her family, her son, her soul. I mean,
Yeah.
that energy, when I see him, like I've seen videos of where like he'll go to hold her hand and she'll pull it away because she's pissed off at him. That's the natural, that's pure. That's, that's
Yeah.
pure. That's not being
Yeah.
afraid to be who you are. And I think that is something we all need.
Yeah. True. And the feminine likes the masculine, but the feminine is learning a lot in being in her power and not being scared of
Yeah.
being in her power, even if you could lose the masculine, for example. So
Yeah.
it's also like a lot of the patriarchy was also based on codependent patterns.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I don't say anything or I don't say my truth because what happens if I lose him?
Yeah.
And then there is this full sense of power that she also used to not entertain because it doesn't, maybe she didn't really have the choice, but sometimes we have the choice and we have to decide to step up, even if it can be risky to trigger all this force
Yeah.
and all this process.
But the level of compassion that the mother frequency brings is love. I mean, it's pure. We can't describe it.
Yeah.
And so, like, this energy is reemerging after being traumatized and oppressed and suppressed. This is an energetic, what did you say a minute ago? Alchemic
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
We had a young woman on, 32 years old. Um, yeah, 32 years old. And she was on last week. She's coming on again this week. Her name is Adina Blumenfield.
Mhm.
And she was in a religious cult for 27 years, had 3 kids, went through all kinds of abuse and trauma. And 5 years ago, she took her kids and got out. Now, she'd never driven a car. She never had a job. Nothing. And I've not seen a more balanced, peaceful, loving soul. She wasn't talking about the story. She was just the compassion that frequency carries for its victimizers. She
Yeah.
called it mastery. She said, I mastered. I love them. I mean, it was incredible, but I think this is what we're going to see more of. This
Yeah.
common sense of the soul that the mother frequency carries.
Yeah. And this understanding that that is the way it went, but that even the perpetrators deep down at a soul level don't really decide to act in this way, right?
Yeah.
So this compassion is very, like, the energy is very divine and very forgiving.
Yeah.
And
That's right.
she respected herself as she went away.
Yeah.
But we can both respect ourselves and say, I can see and I can forgive.
Yeah. And I think another thing that she exhibits that other women exhibit, I see, and that is that to be your for that frequency to be in its natural nature does not, in full power, does not mean that it can't laugh, cry, you know, have the giggles, be all those things. It doesn't have to be staunch and puffed up and
Yeah.
like that. It doesn't have power. Isn't that? It's not
And
like
power
that.
is not force. Oh,
No.
there is a beautiful, I don't remember who wrote this book. The book is Power versus Force. That's very interesting. Power is more like it's I'm in my power. But
Yeah.
force is
Yeah.
is very doing and very active, almost impulsive, compulsive, and all that.
Yeah. That's really interesting because
Because it's not grounded into
yeah,
power.
you're using force as a noun but it's also a verb that says force. You know, I'm going to
True.
force this,
Yeah,
right?
I wasn't thinking of
Yeah,
that.
I
Yeah.
like that. That's really good. Yeah. So are you, I don't want to run out. Are you still, are you working with people? Are you doing sessions? Are you doing
Yeah.
anything online?
Yeah.
Anything, anything that you want to cover,
Yeah.
or blessings or meditate, anything you want to do, light language, dance, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
uh,
So,
yeah, the floor is yours.
I'm still doing the same sessions we spoke of like before, which are can be one or more like mentoring type of work, always with the intention of bringing back the individuals back to their power and being in a very holding, compassionate, also guiding, but really like holding space for something to rise from within. That's the first things that I do. I also dive more and more into astrology, and I really like to do natal charts with a karmic, like a past life perspective, and delving into the soul story, what happened before, and Pluto and the lunar nodes, and what can be the real deep intentions of
Mm,
this lifetime, because we all have like the collective intentions at play, but we also have like very individual ways of moving this energy. So that's very interesting. And yes, the last thing I'm sort of growing currently is all around creative expression,
mm,
and everything we were saying at the beginning of this conversation. So I'll do a webinar next week about letting our creative flow and allowing our creative force and energy to really move us and to create
yeah,
from there. So
yeah,
unleashing and unlocking this.
yeah. And I think I think the universal energy is supporting you, because I know over the last few weeks in particular, really about 3 months, that my sacral's been blowing up, and I know that means something with my creativity as well. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
But,
yeah. It can
so
be energies that can be a little trapped or not really moving. I
yeah,
don't know. I mean,
it's
of
done
course,
it
I don't
all.
know.
Mine's done it all. It's like, but no, but I know that that's why it's happening. You know,
Yeah.
it was the root and the sacral. So, have you ever heard of, is it Sabian, the Sabian symbols?
Yes.
Yeah, I got a really interesting message this morning, and it's one of those things that somebody will send you, and I don't even look at anything. I don't know why. I woke up and I was coming out of dimension, and I guess I just knew to get my phone, and I picked, and anyhow, everything. There's no coincidences, but you know how you see something, and this was about astrology, and it was about um, Sabian symbology, and she also had some voice messages with it, which the code from that, so it wasn't the words, and it wasn't what I didn't understand everything. That's what I'm trying to say. But
Hmm.
she made mention of the Sabian symbology
Hmm.
that's very interesting right now. She talked
Yeah.
about the Lilith thread,
Mm.
and some stuff that was going on since the 23rd. But what it said to me is that things are kind of like moving fast. I almost want to say like on fire. But
Yeah.
the clarity is getting sharper and sharper and sharper the deeper we go into the fire. These are my words, but that's what I got from it. And
Yeah.
since you mentioned astrology, I just thought I'd ask you if you knew what Sabian symbology was.
I know about them, but not really deeply, just
Mm,
like I've read about it, but I don't know much about that. But yes, I do believe it's a fast moving time. But we've
yeah,
talked about it for so long. We've
yeah,
talked about something would happen, and many things are happening like in our daily lives, like nobody know about it. It can be
yeah,
very private or small, but this is certainly like a big collective time.
yeah, no doubt, and individually. And I
Yeah.
like what you said too. Like this, like, oh, everybody's not everybody. I shouldn't be mean, but it's like some are waiting for a big announcement. Here's
Yeah.
the big announcement. Here's the next chapter in human history. And I'll
Yeah.
say to myself, well, who created all the other history? And what history were
Yeah.
we given? Like it's the
Yeah.
same story. So I am soul. I mean, I just look at it
I
every
know.
day, and I
Yeah.
think, and I watch videos, and I read things, and I think, and I communicate with the universe, and I talk to my beautiful wife, and we talk about this all the time, every day. And then at the end of the day, I think to myself, this is the one thing I know. this is me, and not the body, but the full, all the bodies, the consciousness, and let's
Yeah.
keep going.
This is what we're learning to, like, no matter what are external things or circumstances, we are grounded into our soul, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we like talk often, like the humankind talks a lot about external things, but we tend also in time to get more and more anchored into exactly what you describe, your own
Yeah.
presence and
Yeah.
spirit.
Right on. Right on. It's always a pleasure talking to you. You're it's like talking to it's like we're sitting around the living
Yeah,
room
very
around a
interesting.
coffee table having a coffee or a tea.
Yeah,
Just
that would be lovely.
yeah. So you have at least one admirer out here. Michael, but a couple other people asked too. If you would put up your link, they said please give us the link. So anything that you want to put, if you could put in the comments. It's also on
Sure.
YouTube. It's also on YouTube. If you want to put it on there. But as far as the link, how to get in touch with you, and then this event you have coming up soon.
Yeah, and I will put the link of my book as well, so
Okay,
that people
perfect.
can go
Where's
to
your book at?
the 2 links.
Is it on Amazon Kindle?
Yes.
Oh, cool. What's the name of
Yeah.
it?
She's the Moon.
She's the Moon. All right. You take care, beautiful sister.
Yeah, you too.
Peace
Bye bye,
out.
Tom.
All right.
Bye.
Best to you and your partner.
Thank